Quoting Mr. Miyagi, Daniel LaRusso tells his students, if you're looking for revenge, you can start by digging 2 graves. He goes on to say that if you hate in your heart, you've already lost. The series Cobra Kai has swept the world, internationally and as well as the United States, in helping kids return to this Karate Kid series that most of us enjoyed, well, when we were young. And yet, at the heart of the series, it is revenge. And a couple quick questions for you as we start thinking about this. How long do you hold a grudge? And how deep have you hurt someone and not gotten it right? In these extraordinary times of social division, many of us feel maligned by those we once considered our neighbors, our friends, our allies, our leaders, and yeah, maybe even our families. And it's easy to perceive the opposition as a threat to be neutralized, even if it means violence and destruction. In the series of Cobra Kai, members of each camp are out for revenge, some to the point of obsession. But the series asks us questions in our lives if we are driven by retribution. For many, the phrase eye for an eye is a biblical dictate that justifies inflicting pain on our enemies. But the popular interpretation ignores the full context of sentiment, including when it's uttered in the Bible and who's it uttered by. How we read it and how we apply that phrase carries implications for the people we become and the society we want to create. The series asks us the question of a life driven by retribution. The Bible does appear to support severe punishment to those who do us harm. Moses is commanded by God to take a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. But we overlook this, as well as related laws in Exodus are all part of establishing a legal system for the burgeoning Israelite nation. These are not necessarily a prescription for spiritual development. The edict speaks to the ways of which the courts, rather than us as individuals, ought to respond to transgressions. It also rejects the use of excessive violence motivated by personal biases, to recoup only what was lost and to seek no more than an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth and so forth. That fairness is what separates justice from revenge. Jesus, by the way, revisited these laws in the Sermon on the Mount. He challenges his audience there to question conventional wisdom with regard to marriage, worship, love, and anger. To the notion of an eye for an eye, he added, if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them and give them the other cheek also. And to your opponents, he says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This is not a call to defer justice, but rather a plea to put spiritual health against hatred, against your own sake. Otherwise, we may find ourselves consumed by ill will and no better than those who have done us the same harm. It may feel liberating to give as good as we get, and then some. And yet violence always comes with a cost, not just to others and to ourselves. It's even in holding others accountable for their wrongdoings, we still must exercise love, patience, and restraint. We must respond to the challenge of this moment in history rather than simply act to the moment. If we hope to establish lasting change, we must be led by justice rather than revenge. Back to Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, we are talking about your neighbors and your friends and your family, and even those you sit in church with. We are to be known as Christians by what? By our love for one another. Be patient and practice restraint. Embrace one another with love, not just in an election year, but for the many years to come. I'll see you next time. And this is Jim Wallace. See you next Tuesday. Thanks for listening.